Nah, I know I won't. Are we ready?
Three,
Yeah,
2.
that way. V Live like Houston. Oh, bro. It's your boy Lizzo, man. Session Podcast. We in this bitch, man. Solo sessions, man. And that boy Frankie got me in here working like a goddamn dog. This is what it is, man. Y'all know what it is. I just wanted to come in, tap in with my followers, man, my subscribers, the listeners, the viewers, everybody at home, man. We started something new here on the Session Podcast called Solo Sessions. That way y'all can get to tap in with me, see a little bit about what I think about, what I got going on in my brain and shit like that, if you give a flying fuck. But it's just a chance for you guys to, I don't know, maybe if this is your first blunt of the day, your morning blunt, your wake and bake, you know what I'm saying? You're at the work, you're on the ride home, you know how you got to get that blunt going. You can listen to this bullshit, you dig? Ain't shit, man, going on, man. We in the stew, man. Fibre Studios, West Loop, we in Chicago. Y'all know where we at. Yeah, man, just wanted to tap in with motherfuckers. A couple things was going on in my mind. You know, I don't really be knowing what I'm going to talk about on these motherfuckers until I'm damn near on the way here, until I sit down. But one of the main things that I wanted to tap in with everybody about is like fatherhood, man. So a lot of people, if you don't know, if you do know about me, I am kind of new to the fatherhood game. I have a 1-year-old at home. So yeah, man, I'm like new to this fatherhood shit, but it's lit as fuck. Like, I feel like the common misconception niggas get about being a dad is like, oh, it's hella expensive and kids are expensive and how the fuck you gonna pay for this and that and diapers and shit like that. Like, at least that's what I always heard. But like, low key, it's actually very easy. And this is like, this is a young black male perspective on fatherhood. But so far, at least, it is very easy. Now, I know there's probably going to be people who's like, yeah, wait until they're older and they have to have, you know, extracurriculars and shit like that. But it's low-key like, I feel like being a dad is as easy as you make it. Because if you don't have that mindset of like, you want to be the best dad for your kid possible, that shit's going to get hard. Like, it's going to get hard. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like all through... Like, here's the thing, as a new dad, if you're not ready for it, you got 9 months to kind of mentally prepare for it. You dig? I mean, granted, however you figure out, you know, that you're expecting, but you got some type of time frame where you can figure it out. Now, I know there's offset situations where people might find out they're a dad, you know, later and after the fact, but we're talking a situation where, like, you get your lady and you're like, hey, we're expecting a child. And then you're in that mindset of you don't know what the fuck to do. You know, the best advice to that, if anybody's expecting a kid or may want a kid but don't know how to do it, that shit comes like 100% natural. Like, there's really no advice to being a good dad. Like, it comes so naturally. Like, so for instance, like during pregnancy, you know, everyone knows that the woman is going to go through a bunch of different stuff with her body and just mentally and things like that. So if you know that, you know, like if you're trying to be a great dad, you know, some things that I did was I tried to make the pregnancy as easy as I could possibly do that for her. And really it's just whatever she needs, you kind of do it. And there's really just no questions asked. You just do whatever she needs because their bodies do go through so many different changes. There's a lot of worry. Everybody's like excited. There's anxiety at the same time. So the first step to fatherhood is taking care of that lady during pregnancy, man. Like that is like, I feel like that's number one. You have to set that grounding as a new father immediately, from doctor's appointments to, you know, just being at home, rubbing the backs, going to pick up foods that she wants. You gotta set that foundation. And one thing that helped us through our pregnancy thing was like just me being there and being vocal at the doctor's appointments, because especially if this is like her first pregnancy, no one really knows what to expect. You can hear from everybody, you can Google as much as you want, but everybody's body is different. So when you go into these doctor's appointments as a father, ask questions. If you're curious, ask the doctors. Let them know that you are there, you are present, and that also kind of subliminally puts in her mind that you're present. You're going to be there to help take care of her and this kid, going forward. And then, hell, man, if you do that, I feel like your job as a father becomes so much easier because, especially as a black man, I feel that we have like kind of this cloud over our head that we are gonna fuck up being a father somehow, whether it's we're gonna leave the family to go get some fucking milk and never come back, or we're not gonna see our kids if we don't work out with the lady who we had the kid with. We're never gonna see our kids. We're not gonna pay child support or shit like that. So we already kind of have a bad rap on us as a whole. So when you do it, man, it feels great. It feels great to be a great dad. It feels great to be present. Your kid, your kid really knows who their dad is just as much as they know who their mom is. They know. Now, they're not going to show you the same love. This is the first and foremost. No kid is going to show you the same love as they're going to show their fucking mom. It's not going to happen. But they know and respect their dads in a total different way. And I feel that it's very important because I can't imagine how my daughter would be without my presence. And that's something that I don't ever want to have to endure, is not even being there to know what my daughter would be like because my presence wasn't around. But what I do know is with my presence around, my daughter's a very sweet girl. She can start, she's a little mischievous, but she does know how to get in line. And whenever I say something, she gets in line right away. There's no hesitation. She knows dad's here and he's not going to play. So, and that gives me promise that, my kid's going to be able to live a great future of understanding and, discipline realistically. But I fear that without that, her mom can discipline her, but the bass in my voice is a little bit different. You know what I mean? So it's some of these things actually does matter. And that's one of the biggest takes I've gotten as a new father. Is just, being present, being there, shit like that matters. The kids really notice, and they really notice the things you do. And your woman, she notices the things you do. Everyone notices, family notice, and it's a contagious thing. Being a great father, I feel that I've had some of my friends who are new fathers. It's almost like a mini competition. Who can one up each other to be a great father? Who can have the best birthday party for their kid? Who can have the most nights out with their kid at museums or taking their kid to a fancy dinner and things like that? And that's what it should be. It should be that, because how many of us, as kids probably didn't get to experience some of those nice things? And then now we have the chance as fathers to be able to provide those nice things we always wanted. So it's a blast spoiling. It's a blast being a dad. It's a blast feeding, providing. It's a blast. And if I feel that if anybody had any second thoughts about maybe having kids in their life, I feel like you should do what you were put here on earth to do, and that's essentially to reproduce. I hear a lot of people always like, oh, I don't like kids. I don't want kids ever. But it's everybody's life changes, gets different at some point, and I think everyone should have a kid. It's an unbelievable experience. Of course, when you're ready, everyone's time is different, but it's an unbelievable fucking thing. Aside from fatherhood, man, that was just something that I had to just let you guys know. This shit's dope. Fatherhood's a fucking dope thing, bro. And I don't think it gets talked about enough, but being a fucking dad is actually cool as fuck. And being able to say you're a dad to a dope ass kid is even more cool. Cause you're yeah, I made that. That's me. It's my little person. That shit's actually really dope as fuck. Other than that, man, I kind of wanted to dig deep, cause I was in a fucking rabbit hole the other day, man. My fucking guy, he brought up this topic, cause we're in Chicago, and on some real shit, being in Chicago, growing up in Chicago, going to CPS and shit like that, like you don't really learn much about Chicago's history, G. And it's wild because we live in this motherfucker, but we don't know nothing past like what our parents went through when their parents moved from fucking Mississippi or wherever the fuck you moved from to come to Illinois and live in Chicago. So we were talking, and then one thing that I learned about Chicago was that Chicago had not one but two World Fairs, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if there's more, but I know there's two that happened here. And for those who don't really know what the World Fair is, because I don't even know when they fucking stopped doing it, I wish they didn't stop doing it, because that shit sounds overly cool as fuck, overly dope as fuck. It's probably like, I don't know, imagine the best musical festival you was probably at times like a billion. Like the shit sounds so crazy. But one in particular was the World Fair of 1893. So I'm loose on the facts. I'm not a fucking, history guy, but I did my little research and shit like that. Now, this World Fair of 1893 has several things happen. And this is dope as fuck because it took place right here in Chicago. One thing that happened was electricity. So electricity was basically introduced to people by a push of a button. And at this push of a button, they were able to basically light up the entire city of Chicago, which was called the White City during this time because they had painted everything white for the World Fair. And during this, Tesla had some generators and whatnot going. They had this is a super name drop for the people who were there, by the way. Tesla had some shit going. Westinghouse beat out Thomas Edison in a bidding war to who can present the electricity to the world. Thomas Edison is now went on to make General Electric, which is, we all know, was General Electric. But some also crazy things that happened at this World Fair was that they excluded blacks. Yeah, black people weren't allowed to have any exhibits or show pretty much anything, except for one black guy in particular who was W.E.B. Du Bois. W.E.B. What is it? W.E.D. Du Bois? I don't know. Don't fucking quote me. You guys know what I'm talking about. But he was the only guy actually allowed to come in and actually speak. But we know how highly touted and smart he was. And if you know about his story, he was very resilient as a person in general. But these are just some things that like they don't ever teach you about, when it comes to Chicago history. Also in 1893 during this World Fair, H.H. Holmes, the fucking serial killer, was doing his serial killing during this fucking World Fair in Inglewood on 63rd. The shit that they never talk about. You know what I'm saying? Like, this shit is crazy. Anybody from Chicago who knows anything about this World Fair, let me know what y'all know in the comments and shit, because this shit is crazy. Apparently, the city looked absolutely fucking amazing. Buildings were, some of these buildings that were there during the World Fair were just insane. And after the World Fair, they actually demolished all of the shit. So we don't even know, there's like two buildings that still exist from that time, which is, I think, the Art Institute now and the Science Museum. And we would never know. We never talk about it. They don't talk about it at the Science Museum often. And it's just one of those things that's like, you kind of got to look it up to know about. And we've lived here. I've lived here my whole life, and I've never known about it. But if you get time, guys, look up the 1893 World Fair in Chicago. It's a crazy thing. Yeah, bro, Frankie's got some pictures. Look at this shit. This shit looks like ancient fucking Rome in its heyday. Look at this shit. Look at the size of this young man and the scale of everything else. Massive. We're talking 1893. And this is supposedly when they just introduced electricity. Absolutely wild stuff. I don't know how they could have built all this shit and just now being able to introduce electricity. But I tell you what, Yeah, this shit had to have already been there. Because when they talk about, because if you know the history of Chicago, what we do know about the history of Chicago is in 1871, there was a huge fucking fire that wiped out more than half of the fucking city. So let's say 22 years later, we have this and a World Fair. 2 years. Yeah, they were saying they built this shit in 2 years after the Great Reset, because they had to rebuild the city after the Great Chicago Fire. And in 2 years, they were supposedly, look at this shit. We live here and we have an amazing skyline. But look at this shit. This shit looks like, and this shit's like all stone. This is like all, they claim that it was made of plaster. Yeah, they say that it's made of like wood and plaster. But this is, come on. We know what the fuck this is, guys. The main question for me, though, is, my main question is just, why destroy this shit? Why, after the World Fair, was this shit destroyed? I can understand why it was already painted white. Okay, maybe it had too many symbolisms of what was already there. Paint it white, you can mask it off. Understood that. But the destruction of it, because this is beautiful. We have not seen anything like this. I can't think of anywhere that looks this fucking great. Fountains. Look at these fountains. How the fuck did these fountains work with no fucking electricity, you guys, before? Just think deeply. How could this shit even possibly work? 1893. This is more beautiful than some shit nowadays. Absolutely insane, guys. And this is right here in Chicago. And no one ever talks about it. This is something so grand, bro. So fucking grand and elegant that no one ever talks about. Look at these statues. Looking like fucking Hercules at the top. This is like ancient, no bullshit. They got fucking the guy with the towel and the spear, the long hair. That's fucking like Greek mythology. They got a fucking bear on the, look at this guy. Who the fuck got up there to build that? Bruh, like real shit, like dead ass, bro. Bro, dead ass. And see, when you get into this rabbit hole, you start hearing about shit like giants and the land of Tartaria and how we are actually on the land of Tartar. And there were giants here before us that built this massive shit. Another thing to note, as I was looking at all this shit, the bulbs on top of all of those buildings. Do you guys see how all those buildings have a fucking a bulb style, almost kind of how you see the Taj Mahal, where they're like bulbs at the top of the shit. Apparently within these bulbs were like a crystal, and they were basically energy conductors. So I don't know what the fuck went down in Chicago, but if you do the math, guys, energy conducting, 1893, introducing electricity, random ass fires in 1871, and then destruction of this beautiful shit after the fucking fair. I'm not much of a conspiracy theorist. I don't have my own fucking theories. I'm just following, what people have already put into the light. But it actually does raise a great point. Look at this shit. This is from Chicago's World Fair. What is this? What is this? The detail, guys. In 2 years? Fuck you. Fuck you. There's little statues of men. Bro, this is grand as fuck. Dude, if I saw this in person, this is grand as fuck, bro. There's no way. This is cathedral style building, clearly here before 1893. Absolutely insane. Chicago's got some weird history, man. But that's what I hope to bring to the light. Chicago's got some weird fucking history, man. Wow. Insane, guys. Yeah, man. That's all, man. We just wanted to tap in with you guys. Some interesting stuff to look at. Chicago's World Fair, 1893. Everybody should go ahead and tap into that. Do your research on some of this history out here, man, because some of this shit is just the math ain't mathing, man. Like, look at the fuck. Come on, look at how massive that was to host nations. World's Fair Chicago 1893.com. Looks like they got like a pretty good timeline and some archives and some photos and shit like that. You can go back in time, look at some of the artifacts and things that were there. But yeah, man, this is one of those things that, and then we got to wonder, why did they stop the World Fair? Something had to be a reason they stopped the World Fair. It couldn't have been war, because war is always a thing. Like, something had to stop the World Fair, and it had to be a major reason. Wow. But yeah, man, Session Podcast, man. These solo sessions, Lil Zo, man. Make sure y'all subscribe, follow, hit us up on TikTok. We on the talk, man, at the Session Podcast. On Instagram, at the session.podcast. YouTube, at the Session Podcast Shy. Man, we all over the place. Make sure y'all follow us. Spotify, the Session Podcast. Apple Podcast. The Session Podcast, man. Make sure y'all tap in with us. We at Fabre Studios. We signing out.